Well, we need to go anyway. How about that?
That's right.
Call to order. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Moffitt, and I would like to welcome you to the December 18th, 2025 Design Review Committee meeting. This is a 9-person committee whose primary function is to perform design review for projects located in one of the city's 3 designated design review areas.
Call to order.
The downtown, the
Good
riverfront.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Moffitt, and I would like to welcome you to the December 18th.
Oh, that's
Delayed echo.
fun. No, that's, I hate hearing myself. Thank you. Three designated design review areas, downtown, the riverfront, and the hotel overlay zoning districts. I was like, who is that annoying person? Oh, yeah, I know him. This is a mandatory review, voluntary compliance process with one exception for hotels seeking to skip council review. Hotels taking advantage of this incentive must receive a positive recommendation from the committee. 5 of us are participating in person. We have 1 participating virtually this morning. We are also streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website, also linked on the committee page. And you can also watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel, either live or recorded. I will take roll call at this time. Christina Roche is absent, as far as I know. Joe Balkin? Balkin.
Yes,
Joe, I've said your name before, I promise. Eddie Dewey?
Present.
Thank you. Jeremy Goldstein is absent. Stu Helm?
Present.
Thomas McLaughlin is absent. Michael McDonough?
Here.
Ricardo Sejo?
Good morning.
We have a quorum. We have 5 members in attendance, actually 6 members, including Eddie virtually. We will, just to point of order, so since we're hybrid, I will have to do all votes via roll call. We can't just say aye with 1 virtually. So our first item of business, assuming I know how to get to the agenda, there we go. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes from the November 20th, 2025 meeting. Are there any revisions or comments, or do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I am an aye. Joe?
Aye.
Eddie?
Aye.
Stu?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
Motion carries. You are great at this, thank you. All right, so we have 2 items of new business this morning. I'm tired. This afternoon, 232 Swannanoa River Road, the Terminex Services Facility, that's a level 1, and the 290 Depot Street project, that's a level 2. Both of these projects are mandatory review and voluntary compliance. And so our first item is the 232 Swannanoa River Road. The project contact is Thomas Durante, and I think who's doing staff.
Got this one.
Dang. You're up.
Computer should wake up if you.
Just as a note, Thomas is not here, but we should have some members of the applicant team.
Okay, wonderful.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is the second time that this body has heard this review, but I understand we do have a decent contingent of new members today. So I will go back through my report, which has seen some updates, although I will preface this by saying the revisions from the last meeting to this one have not been large overhauls, but the site plan has gotten much further to an appropriate measure. So this project consists of 2 parcels still to be recombined into one 1.14 acre lot at the corner of Swannanoa River Road and Britt Drive. The site is in the River Zoning District and within the Swannanoa River West Design Sector of the Riverfront Design Review Area. Much of the site is located within the 100-year flood zone due to its proximity to the Swannanoa River, though the floodway kind of splits on either side of the subject parcel. There was an existing Terminex office building on the site, before Tropical Storm Helene, but it was substantially damaged and subsequently demolished in March of this year. The proposed project is an elevated single-story commercial space for a single tenant, the owners of the site, Terminix. Plans show the space underneath the occupied story to be mostly empty except for a single storage platform, which the discussion of which I will actually be concluding my presentation with today. The total proposed gross floor area is 4,400 square feet, and the building is sited on the front and to the west side of the lot, with parking to the east and what was originally outdoor storage planned for the rear. There's still outdoor storage and parking for the business itself to the rear. Although that has changed some, there is now, as we'll see later, a stormwater detention pond on the western side of the property. Two entrances are proposed. Two entrances to the building are proposed, I should say, one along the front elevation and one to the rear. Each of these entrances access the occupied story with stairs from grade, that there is an elevator serving the rear entrance. The proposed driveway on Swananoa River Road is 24 feet wide, and the Britt Drive entrance has been reduced to 24 feet as well as required. Sidewalk will be required with the standard 5 feet in width and with a 5-foot planting strip. Beyond that, as we'll see in the review of the site plan, additional vegetation has been added to further meet our requirements, although we're still a little bit short in a few measures, which I can go over as required. Beyond that, I will continue to the actual building itself. As we can see, this was the original building, and this is what it looked like after the demolition. And these are the proposed changes. Here we see the front and rear elevations and the two side elevations, which I can go between as necessary. Most of the design has remained the same, as I said before: fiber cement lap siding, maybe an accent element of brick veneer in a running bond pattern with architectural shingles for the roof. As we've gone over this before, I won't go into the nitty-gritty of every single recommendation, but I will address any of those as required. Moving to the site plan real quick before we go back and have any necessary discussion of the building itself. You can see along the rear of the parcel what was once marked as more of a gravel laydown yard has been changed to additional parking for the business, as well as a stormwater detention pond on the western side of this image. The parking will likely be required to be reduced somewhat, at least with the current uses proposed by the applicant. But all in all, this site, while perhaps requiring some additional vegetation, is at a point where it's close to being approvable as far as the level 1 review process goes, although there still are some additions needed, as I said, in terms of vegetation meeting our recommendations for tree canopy preservation requirements. The structure needs to be elevated because it is in the 100-year floodplain. The building was demolished, as I said, and the new building is required to meet all standards for elevation above the base flood elevation. New construction must be elevated or protected to at least 2 feet above base flood elevation, while elevation to 4 feet is recommended. The building site, in terms of grade, is 5 to 6 feet below base flood elevation, so that's why we see an elevation of about 10 feet. One aspect of elevation and one aspect of the protection of the of the floodplain is has to do with the storage platform. Given the nature of Terminix's business, we have reached out to them to see if they have plans for any kind of chemical storage on the storage platform. That would not be permitted, but we have not received an answer from them on that point up to this point. So that is one item that will be rectified before approval, but given that it is shown without context on the site plan at present, I do want to bring that item up.
Before you get too far beyond the flood elevation, so 2 foot above BFE is recommended, or is minimal, 4 foot's recommended, what are they at?
They are at, so like I said, I went too far. Base flood elevation is, I believe, 2,005 feet. The grade is 2,000 feet above sea level, and the building is elevated to about 2,010. So they meet the 4 foot recommendation, but the storage platform does not, is below the base flood elevation. So I can return to the building elevations now to facilitate that discussion, but I can also take any questions that our committee members have.
For those of us that weren't here when this body previously reviewed it, I did go through the comments. Can you tell me what changes were made from the last time to this time?
Yeah, it's pretty minimal. And I can, actually, I'm going to pull up the previous slide just as a discussion aid. And I can do that quick.
Is the applicant going to present anything?
They are here to answer questions as necessary. All right, so I'm going to keep it in this view just so I can swap between. As you can see, the answer is that very little has changed. On the front elevation, the windows to the left of that picture have been moved in accordance with the recommendations of this body. Beyond that, the changes on the front elevation are fairly minimal. On the rear elevation, again, not much change, if any. And then I can go to that side view. And the same here, and you'll see, once again, pretty identical in terms of what's going on with those two images. This is what was previously submitted and continued, and this is the most recent submittal by the applicant.
And so this body recommended a continuance?
It was an informal review, was it not, or was it?
It was a formal review.
Okay.
The applicant was consulted as to whether they
We asked them.
desired a continuance or not.
Yeah, we asked them to make some, well, so in the staff report, I think Daniel said it well when he said, how was it he said it? I'll use your precise wording here. The proposed building has minimal attachment to the architectural traditions of the riverfront area.
Yeah,
I think
very
that's well
diplomatic.
stated.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's good.
I would, to summarize the previous commentary from the committee, I would say the primary message was that the proposed design was a little bit too residential for both a commercial project, but specifically a commercial project in the river area.
Should we address questions to you, or will there be an applicant? to
I
talk
can
to?
answer any initial
Technical,
questions.
yeah. If you've got questions, start them with Daniel. If he can answer them, then we'll ask the applicant if they can.
So there is an applicant that's going to follow you?
Yeah, we have Ron from Terminix here yet? Looks like no, so I'm here right now.
So if we've got any questions or comments regarding the current proposal. I maintain the comments we had in the first, when we made the first presentation. It's not substantially different. I agree that the proposed, it just is not currently in alignment with the river design review guidelines for the Swananoa River West area. It doesn't meet the, it doesn't have that, it does not comply, it's not congruous with the architectural traditions of the riverfront area. I think there were other solutions that we talked about that would have been more appropriate. There's, we can get nitpicky with the building, but that's just generally the way I'd look at it. There's specific design decisions that they made, the elevating the building, that's all fine. And the shape and even the placement of the building is okay. It's the architectural character of the building that I would say is not currently in compliance with the River District design guidelines.
Agreed. I was just kind of curious, like, did our comments make it through into the design team? And like, how did that process work? Did they just decide they didn't want to change anything, or do you know?
Unfortunately, I'm unable to speak on behalf of the applicant, though I did solicit a potential answer to that question before the meeting. I did not receive a response. My understanding is that these are the changes that the applicant is willing to make, but beyond that, I can't really speak to their opinion.
The person who sent her isn't the applicant or anyone representing, are you representing Terminix at all?
Yes, sir. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm late.
That's
You're
okay.
fine. Yeah, so I've just concluded sort of my side of the presentation. I believe the committee has some questions for you about sort of how Terminix feels moving forward with the design. Do you have any more questions for me before we move to the applicant team?
Thank you, Daniel.
I got one. So you mentioned they're deficient in a few plant quantities or tree quantities.
That's correct.
Should we discuss that, or do you think staff is like going to push those requirements forward?
That's part of the level one.
Yeah, it's something involved in the administrative process. This project would not be approved unless they met those standards.
So we don't need to dive into that. Okay.
Yes, I mean, I can say specifically, this project meets the standards for building impact trees, street trees, vehicular use area trees. What we're looking at is our tree canopy preservation ordinance. And my guess is that those trees most likely go in the area around the detention pond to the, what would be Plan Northwest, but is actually sort of the western edge of this parcel.
Well, we've lost our landscape architect contributors, and we sometimes don't allow enough input on landscape architecture, so I just wanted to reference that.
Sure. Before I go, I remember last time we had some confusion about property lines as well as the relation between the property lines and Swananoa River Road as well as Britt Drive. Do we have any questions about that before I cede the stand?
Doesn't look like anything changed.
This site plan, I agree. The site plan makes those elements a little bit clearer, I would say, but nothing has changed in terms of the site. There's no anticipation of the moving of those right-of-ways or the moving of those property lines. Just to recap for some of our newer members, Swananoa River Road is an NCDOT right-of-way. but whether there actually is such a actual deeded right-of-way is less clear, if it exists at all. So that's why these images are a little bit zoomed out, but the actual property line for this property extends
Way into the road.
across Swananoa River Road.
As well as Britt Drive paving is into their property too.
That's correct. In terms of not the Britt Drive right-of-way, but the paved portion of Britt Drive. Yeah, if there are no other questions, I will take a seat and we will have the applicant step up here.
Thank you, Daniel.
Of course.
If you don't mind stepping up, just stating your name. I'm sorry. Need to speak. We've got at least one virtual today. Thank you.
Parker.
Thank you. So first question was when we met last time, we suggested that the applicant basically consider a design that was less residential in character and more fitting with the industrial character, architectural character of the riverfront district, or river district. How did those conversations go? Because this is essentially the same building.
What they said was the owners got with the engineers and the architects, and that's what they came up with, and they kind of want to stick to what we got.
Okay.
So that's what I've been told.
Okay.
You're the contractor, right?
I am what they call my business card says site supervisor. You would equate it to a foreman on the job site. I hire the subs, make sure everybody does their doing. I'm there every day, making sure everything goes wrong.
Do you work for the contractor that's already chosen for the project?
Yes, sir. I work for Terminex, and the contractor is Terminex. We'll have subcontractors.
Self-contracting.
Yeah, we'll hire subs to do everything, but it will all be pulled under our name, Terminex.
And that's typical for Terminix? You don't
yes,
hire general contractors?
No, sir, we don't. We haven't done that in
Yeah, that's
25 years.
that's not our purview. Okay.
I'm just wondering how the process works. Like,
It's kind of unique, because people ask me how the bug business is, because I work for Terminex, and I go, I don't know. I'm on the opposite side of the house. I just build buildings and remodel for them.
Okay. Do we have any specific questions regarding the building or?
Are you telling us that that Terminex listened to the comments from the last meeting and said, nah, we're gonna go forward with what we proposed?
That's what my understanding is.
Okay.
They took those comments, they got back, went with the engineers, got with the people in the corner offices, and decided that we want to stick with what we got.
Okay,
That's what
Okay.
I've been told.
All right, thank you very much. I don't really,
what do we do about that? I mean, like, is that
so
end
it's.
of that conversation?
All right, thank you, sir. I'm not going to make you stand up here the whole time. I appreciate it. We'll call you back if we've got any specific
Yeah, I'm
questions.
sure if anything's got to get fixed, prior to plans being submitted, that are given, that's a give and take.
Well, so essentially, this is mandatory review, voluntary compliance. So when we make recommendations, so we have design guidelines that we are essentially charged, that's our purview, and that's what we're charged with enforcing, not enforcing, but that's the standards that we're supposed to measure by. And so if it doesn't measure up, then I'm just going to recommend that we not approve it. And then that's that. And if it doesn't get approval, you can still, go through the process. Again, this is mandatory review, voluntary compliance.
Of course.
So there you go.
And Terminix knew that? Was that news to you, that you could proceed with a no vote?
Oh, yeah, we knew that.
You knew that.
We didn't know what was going to happen when we walked in. And if it's a go, then it's a go. If it's a not, then we go back to the architectural engineer and we say, hey, these are the things that need to get fixed, and
Okay.
go forward from there.
All right. Do we need any discussion, or are we ready to hear a motion?
I mean, you could, if you wanted to provide some comments that they wanted to consider them going forward as part of that.
I think it's worth if someone who thinks it's not a waste of time is willing to make some comments, you're more than welcome to.
Well, we can move the previous comments forward again, not that it did anything the first time.
Yeah, I'll read through. There were some site placement issues that we talked about, but my chief is that it does look like a residential building. The dueling sweeping stairs, that's a very beach, residential beach solution to a project. The materials that are used, again, it's not in, the proposed building has minimal attachment to the architectural traditions of the riverfront area. And one of the guidelines is that where new buildings are built, a distinctive character honoring the older and longer standing architectural traditions of the riverfront areas is encouraged. And so we would encourage a building that's more in keeping with the industrial. They can make a square metal box very simply, and it would be more in keeping with that specific industrial part of the riverfront. Those are my comments. Any others?
I'll throw it out there in case it sticks. I agree. I mean, it looks like a beach house, and you know, it's a hammer. A hammer is a hammer is a hammer, right? And there's a reason a beach house looks like a beach house, and this, to some degree, this building is suffering from the same problem. The previous iteration had that sort of solid, massive base. I think this does look a little bit better. It does make it look a little bit more like a beach house, but at the same time, it does lighten it up a little bit. I would suggest giving it a base, taking the slats that are being used between columns, and varying the widths of those slats, varying the spacing between the slats just to give it some character. And then once you get down to the ground level, maybe the bottom 2 or 3 feet are actually not painted the same as the top. There's a little bit more, they're wider, they're spaced more closely, and then they're left to match the columns, so that this sort of gives, you know, but sort of frames each one of those panels and gives the whole building a little bit more of a base, so it doesn't look so much like it's on stilts, if that makes any sense. But I think, you know, an easy way to make this look a little bit better, even if it's not going to help the residential aspect of it, is to just play with the width and spacing of those slats. And like I said, once you get to the bottom, make them match the columns, make them more solid, and make them match the columns.
Mono-slope roof, flat roof would do a world of wonders to
Yeah.
the massing of it, but.
And getting rid of the right stair, and then you can bring instead of having to walk the sidewalk up and then back to get to the stairs. I don't understand the 2 stairs. Yeah, but yeah, my only real comment is just the suggestion to look at the width and spacing of those slats and using that to give some character to it and create a base for the building where it meets the ground.
I would have one question. You may need to step up here to answer this, I'm not sure, but I know, you know, most property owners and business owners, they're making this level of investment in the floodplain, don't want to think about another flood happening to that significance, but there's a potential for it to happen again.
Hopefully, we're designed to withstand it.
Well, that's one of my questions. So, you know, beach houses normally just have to consider water instead of all the debris that comes down French Broad and Swannanoa. So with those slats that are being installed, I see that they're flow-through, that's great. Are they also breakaway, or can they be easily removed quickly? Like, you know, is it a frame with slats on it, or are each of those slats attached individually to the columns?
I believe they're attached individually to the columns. so that it could be repaired relatively easily. I don't know how quickly, let's say we had 24-hour notice, how quickly we could go in and have them removed, if
Okay.
that's what you're getting at.
Well, I mean, I'm not a design professional, so take it for what it's worth, but I would recommend considering either easy removal or breakaway, and so that debris piling up against those slats, can just move through once there's enough piled up there.
I would have to see exactly what the engineers drew as to how it's attached and what it's made with.
I'm looking at the detail.
Yeah, I couldn't tell from the,
They're screwed onto the concrete columns individually.
well, those are 12 by 12 pressure treated, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not a panel.
Yeah.
It's individual boards, individually attached to,
Kind of to be able to, I mean, you could break a treated lumber easily with debris.
One of them. But if you put,
Whatever the size is that you're looking at, I mean, whatever the dimensional it is.
yeah,
I mean, depending on how big the debris is, and then I think it's designed to where it's easily replaceable. But keep people out from underneath.
okay. Well, like I said, take it for what it's worth.
Sure.
My recommendation is easily removable breakaway, considering debris flow from the
Not a
river.
bad idea. If they're screwed in place, then that should be easily replaced, repaired, or removed if, we have a sufficient notice.
Okay.
We've done similar, when we do coastal stuff, we actually, a lot of times we'll have like an angle or something on the side, and it's just a big frame. You just remove 6 screws on each side and remove the whole,
Right.
the whole frame.
Yeah, make it a frame, so you're taking the frame off instead of each individual slab.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's
the
means,
detail's not showing that.
that's means and methods, and it's not really going to affect the adherence or congruous with the architectural traditions of the river.
Trying to
river
slide
area.
in my agenda here.
You're always welcome to do that. Are there any other comments or questions or discussion?
I'm going to make a comment that's going to be pretty harsh. This really depresses me, that this corporate indifference to this building. It almost seems like they're erecting a disposable building. It's a single-use building. It's not, we used to build buildings that could be other things in the future. This is purely for this use here. And just this issue here, like nobody apparently thought that water would flow through it and that the panels should be breakaway. And everywhere you look, there's just like, we don't want to think about this too hard. And I don't know if it's goes back to the architect wasn't given the authority to properly design a building for this site, or corporate or the franchisee or whatever put him under handcuffs and say, don't think too hard about this, just get something up, and if it gets knocked over or we don't need this building anymore, we'll just knock it over. And so I'm sorry you have to hear that, because I don't think you have any control over that, but.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, but and just the fact that there's not even a local general contractor that's familiar with local practices and stuff involved. So, sorry, that goes well beyond enforcing design standards, but apparently talking about design isn't going to go anywhere, so I don't see the point of talking about design. So that's why I'm talking about just the overall approach that the applicant has made to this project is just really.
I can tell you what my understanding is. I can't tell you that it is set in stone. My understanding is that the structural part of it, the underside, is made to withstand the flood. The stuff that we're looking at, the cosmetics, the boards on the outside, are simply there to keep people out, but also be easily repaired. Now, not sitting in on the meeting with the architect and the engineers and the CEOs and stuff, I can't tell you anything other than it is supposed to be designed to withstand the flood, debris, and be easily repaired. I don't know if that helps or what.
Yeah.
Point of order. Can you read me Eddie's chat comment? I can't. Eddie, what, oh, okay, I see. Yes, sir, you should. So the, Terminex is a tenant of his on a temporary basis. So I would like to move that Eddie be allowed to recuse himself from this discussion and this vote. Second. All in, oh, shoot. Michael, we're voting on Eddie recusing himself.
Oh, yeah, individually.
Yes,
Approve?
yes, thank you. Stu? Joe?
I'm okay with that.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate that. Sorry about that. All right.
Well, even going back, you know, we're drilling down on one thing, and there's too many things we could talk about. There's a lot of space under the building not being used. We talked about that earlier, just like in the back, you could park trucks under there. Nobody's considered that, so.
No, sir. It's not even an option. The old building that was there had to have the picnic tables outside removed because people were coming over there and shooting up drugs.
Well, it could be a gate. I mean, you obviously have storage behind a fence, so you have all of this covered area. I'm just saying that it seems like there was a lack of attention to possibilities here. And the stair coming around on the back that wraps around the elevator, it almost lands in the building, and there appears to be no way to actually get onto that stair. So even that just shows nobody's really paying attention to design.
I believe there's going to be a sidewalk there, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, again, there's no point in like discussing it, but the plan, if you look at the floor plan, it shows the stair landing about 2 foot away from the wall, and that's just not wide enough to make that a usable stair. And it seems to imply that you will go under the building.
And then come back.
That you will go under the building to get to that stair, but the panels don't recognize that. So they'll figure it out when, actually you will find, when you're building this thing, it's like, gee, how do we use that stair? So just that level of tension is kind of disturbing, so anyways.
Okay.
Sorry for having to share all that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right, so I'd like to make a motion. I move to disapprove of the Terminex project as presented based on the site plans, elevations, and materials submitted and the discussions heard during this review. We find that the project does not meet the intent of the River District, specifically the honoring the older and longer standing architectural traditions of the riverfront areas.
Second.
All right, I have to do a roll call vote. Michael?
I'm approving the motion to deny, like, I'm a.
That is correct.
I'm an aye, but I'm also a nay. Aye, right?
Yes, you did that correctly. Stu?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, our next order of business is 290 Depot Street, Level 2. This is the formal review. We have had an informal review of this project. This is the proposed 5-story multifamily building. And Sam Starbaum, excuse me.
And
I got to do this correct.
Sorry, I need to
Oh, yeah,
recuse
that's
myself.
right. Okay, anybody, Eddie, are you good on this one? Okay, Ricardo, as Robin is his partner. Am I saying that correctly? Needs, sorry, needs to recuse himself. I would like to move that Ricardo Sejo be allowed to recuse himself from this item. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Michael, you can say aye now. Sorry.
Aye.
Stu.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Eddie, please.
Aye.
Thank you. I'm an aye. That motion carries. I don't think you have to leave. You can stand here and whisper in my ear if you'd like. Okay, fine, optics.
I'll sit over there with the applicant.
Our parking is almost up. He's gonna get that fixed.
All right, thank you. You
Yes,
have the floor, sir.
thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission. Again, for the record, and for you all, my name is Sam Starbaum. I am a Planner 3 with the Planning and Urban Design Department. I am on Will Palmquist's entitlements team. It's been a minute since I've been before the Design Review Committee, so it is nice to reintroduce myself. And before I begin, I would like to lay out the framework for my presentation here. So what I want to do with this presentation, as you'll find I do in all my presentations, is start with looking at a context map and looking at where we are and what we're looking at. So we'll start with the context map. We'll go then into the River District Design Review Guidelines to look at the context in which this building was designed and then what the applicants, Mr. Cohen and Ms. Raines, who are here with us today, how they had to approach this. And then we will get first into the site plan to look at site context and then go into the individual floors by getting to the elevations, and then finally finishing with any questions that you may have for me, and then I will cede my time to Mr. Cohen and Mrs. Raines so you can ask questions to them.
Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Moving right along, where are we? We are, of course, in the River Arts District. This is zoned Rad Shop Front, SHP. Colloquially, this is just known as the Clingman-Lyman interchange. You can see that Old London Road is just to the north there. A little further beyond that is the traffic circle. We have the new multifamily building. We have Ultra Coffee Bar. Moving immediately south, we have Noble Forge, which is Zach Noble's welding outfit, and then a host of other retail, arts, and sort of the cultural experience you come to expect when you associate River Arts District and Asheville. This is the cultural nexus of what makes us what we are. There is an existing one-story commercial building there that was the Eblin Fuel Station. It has not been in operation for some time. The building is still there for now, and as I said, it is within the River Arts Forum District as shop front. It is also within the Clingman Depot Design Sector remnant. We'll look at that in this next slide, and this is the area. What this does not show is the slopes that dictate all buildings move to the front. We'll look at that again once we get to that site plan, which has some of that landscaping information, which I will provide to you all. So these are the river guidelines. This is a frustrating thing about being a planner, is there are a lot of recommendations, there are a lot of guidelines, there's nothing necessarily explicit here. So there is some tea leaf divining that happens here, but I think as relevant to this project, there are a number of things which I have put both in my memo and in this slide here. Of course, that the building should be more linear and build up to or very close to the sidewalk or public way right of line. That is something that is in here. It is also mandated through that River Arts Form District code, where new buildings are built, distinctive character honoring the older and longer standing architectural traditions of the riverfront areas is encouraged. I will not touch that with a 10-foot pole. That's why you signed up to be commissioners. But I will say that the buildings provided in this slide are what the applicant have also provided to meet that intent. And you can weigh in your deliberation whether or not that has been met. And then, of course, that there's minimal parking and services infrastructure in the front or that is necessarily visible. The applicant is providing less parking spaces than is the maximum allowed. There are currently no parking spaces required, but they are still providing 14 parking spaces, and infrastructure has been hitted. And then, of course, using a local materials palette, which we will get into when we look at the building itself. So here's the site plan. This should tell the story of 290 Depot as a property. There are tremendous slopes here. This would, in any other case, count as steep slopes, just because of your 2-to-1 slopes there in sort of the northeast moving immediately down. What is unique about this is it is adjacent to a residential zoning, so it is required to include a type A buffer, which the applicant is doing along that adjacent property line, even though it is unlikely to see any residences there, given the extreme engineering challenges the topography would cause. You also have the tree canopy preservation requirements there in red, and then also some just moving a little further south along that hill. You do have your 14 spaces there, and you can see what is effectively the first floor of this building, right? You do have your 8 retail spaces, and then what we'll look at in this next slide as we get into sort of floor by floor, you'll see that there are some resident amenities, but there are 13 street trees. You do have all your sidewalk requirements being met, and then there is I was talking about this with a commission member before the meeting. This is, this started when this went to TRC as 2 buildings with an upper pedestrian connection. This evolved a little bit in informal. This has now evolved again at formal review. This is now effectively cohesively 1 building, but you can see that there is a pedestrian connection, or at least a gap in the building there where the cars and pedestrians would enter to the rear of the building, and it does have a sidewalk element. So like I said, we're going to look at some of these floors before we get into the exterior massing of this building. This is this first floor. Again, north, plan view north is the top of the page, moving towards you. Towards the south is, again, where you would get actually more east. That's where these parking spots are. You can see those 8 retail spaces in sort of that light salmon color, and sort of the more actually pink, you're going to get your long-term bicycle parking spaces. There are a host of other resident amenities that are met here in this back area. The only thing really to call to your attention is, again, this gap between the building on this first floor and then where those stair entries are. I think that is relevant. In the informal committee review, there was some discussion about having the stairs land, how the stairs access, and sort of read with the rest of the building, so that is certainly pertinent here. Floors 2, 3, and 4 are largely the same, and boy, that looked a lot bigger on my home screen. I apologize for the size. I hope you are farsighted. But this is more of the same. These are your upper stories where you will have that pedestrian connection, which is shown sort of in the rear as that hallway. You'll have your mix of 3, 2, and 1 bedrooms, 2, 3, and 4. And then the roof, which is relevant here because this is a flat roof. This is the primary roof, and it does also provide a green roof and resident amenity spaces. You can see sort of where from that stairwell where the pedestrians could walk to this patio. It does have some slats, the veranda element there, which would provide an on-looking experience to the rest of the River Arts District. And then also looking down, you can see the varied secondary roof pitches, which are anywhere between 112 and 912. So that's the inside of the building. I suspect we are all here for the outside of the building. We'll start with the west elevation. This is your primary elevation. This is as you're on Depot Street looking at the building. This is where you can address most of the 8 comments that were made at the informal committee. I will let you weigh those comments against this when you have this discussion, and indeed, I'll just leave this slide up for the rest of the presentation. But you can see that a few things here. You can see the materiality. You can see where this is predominantly vertical steel with sort of not the, it's not bonderized standing seam, but it has a similar wavy look of the steel elements there. Again, vertical, you have your brick, and then you do have your black anodized, oxidized metal accents. And then again, up here is where that covered area is on the roof for the residents, again, with that black accent railing. And then you do have your maximum heights shown here. This is a little unique, so your maximum height in the rad shop front is 55 feet or 4 stories. If you provide 20% of your units at 80% AMI or below, then you do get height incentives. Then you can increase to 5 stories, and it can go all the way up to 70 feet. Building heights are measured a little differently too. It is not necessarily from first floor elevation to the top of the building. By our code's definition in the UDO, building height is actually to the highest occupied ceiling of the highest occupied floor. So there is still quite a bit of space to work with. Your building elevation, building height is actually going to be around there. So that's a little bit about the building. I did want to say that staff is aware of how prodigiously long this building is. That was another discussion point, I think, for the commission. So in the River Arts Forum District shop front, you are allowed to have 200 feet of building. It can be broken up unless there is by a pedestrian connection that is in section T2. It does require that the pedestrian connection be 15 feet wide at 12 feet high. And there are other examples. I know that this commission just before Halloween saw 179 Riverside. That was another one that broke it up. One other building that this did not see, that did not get built, but I believe Jeremy can comment on, was one on 60 Craven Street. That was another project that was a level 2 that just to meet the demands and these sort of pro formas, that is a challenge. But staff is aware it has evolved a little bit when it first went to TRC earlier in the summer. This was, I believe, a metal railway that met that, but this has evolved to meet the needs of both the project team and the design review committee. So,
I think when we saw it, it was units, the connecting elements. Okay.
So just to be clear, building length is measured,
To the break.
At the pedestrian level. And if at the pedestrian level, well, actually, not even at, I think a podium could be built. So as long as you
Correct.
put a hole in a building that someone could walk through, that effectively breaks the length of the building down.
The podium is allowed in the for flood hazard response.
yes, and if I may respond to that, Mr. Vice Chair, there are sort of two ways this are broken up. This is flood areas and non-flood areas, flood prone. You are correct that in non-flood prone areas, which this is 500-year floodplain, so this is, it feels guilty to say this is barely a year after Helene, but this is still considered non-flood prone in the way that
Right.
the other river areas are. It can be broken up that way. Now, this is fun, and this is why you all are paid the big bucks. Pedestrian connection is not actually defined. I mean, it does give those guidelines that it has to be 15 feet wide, 12 feet high, but it just says narrower road right-of-way widths and walkable pedestrians. None of that is defined, so that is part of the navigating the design language that you all have that is in your purview to do. But generally, that is correct, and that is, I think at times frustrating for staff, for applicants, and for commission members, because it is not more.
We've tried to define that as a both visual and pedestrian circulation route that allows the pedestrian experience to move through the building at those intervals.
Yeah,
Both
so
both
it's-
visually and circulation.
So I guess the authors of the form-based code were defining building length as experienced by pedestrian movement, not visually. Like-
That is how we have,
I mean,
that's how I-
visually,
that's
it
certainly
looks
I-
like
how
one
I have
long
been
building,
applying it,
but
yeah.
if you're walking down the street and you can walk through the hole, then you might experience, even though you're looking at one building, you might be able to
that
experience
is,
it.
and that is consistent with the diagrams that are given in the form-based code.
And just to be clear, they're taking advantage of 20% affordable units to go.
Yes, sir.
And so if they were to change their mind, if we approve this based on that understanding, they're kind of obligated. Like, I feel like a couple projects, they've ended up trying to renegotiate that commitment.
Well, so first of all, that's, our purview are the design guidelines, and Sam's is the administrative. So that would be an administrative issue, and then they would have, it would be administratively enforced. There would have to be changes based on that, and those changes would come back to us as
But
an
we're
amendment.
approving it based on that commitment. I'm just wondering if that needs to be a condition
No.
of our approval?
No, it doesn't
or if
have
it's
to be.
implicit?
It doesn't have to be a condition of our approval because it's already implicit and explicit in the conditions under the administrative.
Correct. But that is not to say if you want to put it in there, that is for the
No,
record.
if it's redundant, I
Yeah.
don't see the point. I just like.
We can make a comment, Michael, that we like it.
I just wanted to make sure that our understanding, if something changed in the future, that the mechanics were going to deal with it.
Yes.
Yes. So that brings us to north elevation. This is where you're going to see the first instance of signage. It does have 290 Depot there, which is in line with the color palette provided by the applicants. You can also see the first of the concrete retaining walls that is attached to this building, and this is, I think this, as well as the south elevation, provide that good diagram of context for what those secondary roof pitches look like, and one of the comments that was made at informal review was dealing with the coverings of some of those patios. This has been changed since informal review. I will let the applicant speak to that, but this is the north elevation. This is the east elevation. This is if you have gone through whatever we're going to call it and are in the parking lot looking at the building now. The rear side, you can see the stairway entrances and you can see the materials there. This is the south elevation. Much, again, all my comments would echo what I had said about the north elevation. And then finally, we'll get to some renderings. This is what rendering 1 looks like, that same elevation, and then this is northeastish and southeastish. You can see that there, I believe that element was meant to be deleted in the far right-hand corner. I'll let I'll let the applicant speak to that. And then one of the things that I did want to address per the informal comments, that the commission had noted that the retail experience is similarly undeveloped. It needs sign bans, things like this.
That was me.
Yeah, this is the challenging part, certainly, of my job, is there are times where I'm a project manager, there are times I'm a switchboard operator. This is an order of operations, so signage, details like that sort of come towards the end under their own permits once the retail leases have been signed. Again, what you are seeing before you today are 8 retail spaces. It's entirely possible, if not likely, some of those walls may come down if it's a restaurant, so the signage may change. So that is, I just wanted to note that procedurally, there is a reason why some of those things aren't met yet. That just comes later in that process. The same will be true of retaining wall permits. So this is
Sam, to clarify, that was more that in the previous design, I did not think that the previous design had allowed for that kind of expression.
Okay.
They hadn't allowed for the, brought things out and kind of thought that through. I think that comment has been addressed.
Okay,
So I'm not asking for the signage or the specific canopies, but just a strategy.
Okay.
Because it's going to have to be addressed.
Excellent.
That's all.
Thank you, Vice Chair. That gives us direction for when we engage
Exactly.
with applicants before coming to DRC then. So here is another one. This gives you the sense of, again, what some of those decks and balcony coverings look like. That was something that was in the comments. You can see the brick elements. You can see those street trees. And then this is the final rendering, which again shows that north elevation as well as what this would look like with all those materials present. And that is my presentation, and I would be happy to stand for any questions that you may have before turning it over to.
This might be for the applicant, but I didn't quite understand the extent of the proposed green roof on the architectural plans. It looks like it's more or less half of the building on the landscape plans. It's a little smaller, and I don't think that's one of the conditions administratively. Should I ask them?
I would recommend you speak to the applicant about that.
Okay. Okay.
I got one more question, and the applicant answered too. Where's the trash? Do you know?
So that was discussed in the first floor as some element of receptacle. I will also let Mr. Cohen specifically speak about that. We have been in conversation about a number of in-ground facilities for collection, but there hasn't been any new updates on that.
Looks like it's inside the building.
Yeah.
It's that little purple,
Yeah.
they've got a roll-up door and collection. So it's on A 2.0, plan number 1. It's in the kind of bottom right there by that storage. There's a little purple room that's got a trash. So they've got it inside the building.
Oh, I see.
But I will also let the applicant speak to that.
Anyway, okay, any other questions for?
I've got a question. On the last few renderings from the street, this is a question that may not relate to the architecture, but it'll give me context for another question. I don't see any street lights. Does that mean that they're not required to put street lights?
So that is a fun question. You can see this here. There are a number of lighting requirements. Those will likely be met on the building. Now, this is a unique, and you can almost see the red line there. That is the property line. Streetlights go in the road right-of-way, which is not the applicant's purview usually, and there are a couple instances in the development process where this negotiation is a little more fluid, right? Because, they're going to be doing a lot of pedestrian improvements to what is city-owned road right-of-way, right? So there's going to be a number of improvements they're going to be making on behalf of Public Works for us, but we're going to have to negotiate lighting. Now, There is one light just on this side, just before Old London Road. I am not sure about the status of that, but that is part of that technical review committee application component, right? Because then we're working with, well, it was Chad Bandy, now it's Dylan Wingler. We're working with the streets and divisions manager or interim manager to figure this out. So no photometric lighting has been provided for the DRC, but there are still lighting requirements that will have to be met as part of the TRC.
It's a really good, first of all, bravo. That's a really good question, because those are normally architectural. I'm assuming the existing light poles are staying, the existing power lines?
Yeah, as of right now, but the applicants can comment if there has been any movement on that as well.
Okay.
I mean, the reason for the question is, we collected almost 1,200 responses in a survey for River Arts District long-term visioning and planning, and we saw over and over that there was a lot of concerns and feedback related to safety and lighting along Depot Street. Yep. So for the residents at the far end of Depot Street, and then vice versa from the wire, and just traveling that at night is not a great experience.
Oh, yeah.
So, if there's anything that can be done when we're taking up on, what is this, 300 feet of,
Just under, yeah.
Road frontage, and solving a good portion of that problem would be amazing.
Yeah, that is.
And I can imagine that would be, something y'all want to do, because you got a bunch of residents that are traveling that same roadway. So I'm sure that's something that has been discussed, but I'd like to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, and I will let the applicant answer their component of that, but there are TRC administrative requirements for lighting that will have to be done prior to issuance of zoning permits, and they will have to work with Public Works and with zoning on any photometrics to make sure it also meets our standards in terms of design, to make sure it's not bleeding, it's all cut off, it's got the right Kelvin, things like that, right heights, but there is also, it's staff's assertion that this is crime prevention through environmental design works when you activate the first floor. So that is, this will be an improvement over the existing site, certainly.
For sure. Any other technical questions, administrative questions for Sam? Very good. Thank you, Sam. If we have any other
Members of the
questions,
commission.
we'll go there. Great presentation. You want to do building or site first? They voted you? Nice, Jason. Good job. Okay, fine.
Hey, Robin Rains with Rojas Architects.
Thank you. Okay, so would you mind walking us through some of the 2 or 3 of the design changes you made since the last go-around?
So, since the last time, let me get the elevations. Real quick, the trash is underground not underground, on the first floor in this room right here. And there's a trash chute that goes down to the building, so on every floor there'll be a trash chute. And then on trash day, they'll roll out these compactors. That'll be building maintenance, that will figure that out. But that right now is where the trash is. And we also don't know the extent of the green roof right now. Living
Fair.
Roofs is working with the civil, and it's in flux.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
So one of the things,
Just note that you have one.
yes, yes, gonna have one, big, little, don't know.
All right.
I changed I think we called them hats on the ends.
Thank you.
They have been revised, and moved this taller vertical thing towards the center. It was further down before. Broke up the storefront elevations quite a bit so that it wasn't so repetitive. I mean, it's still repetitive,
There's
but
a rhythm.
there's a rhythm. And that led to breaking up the entire podium somewhat. I changed the colors of the metals, made them a little bit lighter and brighter, darkened this middle piece, so it's a darker metal. These mansard, they were mansard looking before. They're low slope roof covers now. And
You changed the rhythm of this, on the two bookends.
yes, yeah,
Of the, you moved the windows away from the edges.
yes. Yeah. And I changed the awnings at the entries of the storefronts. So now they're gonna be the corrugated metal to match the coverings on the 5th floor balconies. And I'm showing some wall signage now and some screening on the storefronts. And we're showing locations for signage. I don't think it's gonna say 290 Depot. We don't know what that's gonna say. We'll get branding and marketing involved with that kind of thing, but that's just so that you can know, kind of get a hint of where it will be.
Okay. You changed the window pattern on the middle element as
Yep.
well.
Yep. I did a lot, but I
Leading
can't remember
questions.
what I
My-
did.
Objection, leading questions. Okay. Well,
What's the white lintel band? What's that material? Is that stucco?
Precast stone or something, yeah.
you mean in the brick?
Yeah.
I like the blade signs with the lights.
Do we talk about architecture and then we talk about site stuff, or how do you want?
I mean, you can probably bounce around a little bit, but yes, since Robin's here, let's talk about the building, and then we'll move to the, to Jason and the site.
I thought the most brilliant thing you did was stagger the windows in the bridge piece. I'll call it the bridge piece. So that it doesn't look like there's a apartment wall like centered on that. And I think that's pretty cool. And I would encourage you, I mean, you can actually see the wall, tenant wall,
Yeah.
you know. Maybe use the same window, like try to join the window there with the window
The bright
mold.
metal, yeah.
So that it actually looks like a window, just a wider mole. That way you kind of make that whole apartment wall go away, which I think you were trying to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Similar comment on the brick towers. I see you struggled with creating 3 bays on your tower. The 2 outside bands of windows, but then the middle band, you're butting into another apartment wall, and you've got narrow windows. Maybe the same strategy, try to push those windows as close to that apartment wall as you can, and bridge window to window with a mole cap. Then it looks like a window pair. Because I think putting brick there, you're almost there, but you haven't like gotten there yet. And it looks like those windows, the single windows, are slightly narrower than the bigger ones, and maybe use the same. I feel like this wants to move towards more of a mill building, maybe, and so simplifying the window to just big, kind of the same window punched in, and also the window that you kind of have reversed a typical transom over a pair, and I'm not sure why, and it seems like maybe you want to put the horizontal window above the pairs, but, or get rid of it. Like it's not a very like traditional window pattern in my book. And the muntins in the horizontal window below the 2 has the light pattern above is vertical rectangles, and then that window below, they're horizontal rectangles. So I get really hung up on muntin patterns, so that's my little beef.
Okay.
So those are just kind of window pattern comments, and I think you can downplay the whole lintel thing and kind of make it more of a mill building. This reminds me a little bit of that building on Cox Avenue that's kind of an Art Deco building, kind of a new building, which is a nice building, and, you know, again, these are just designer to designer,
yeah.
charrette kind of things.
Yeah.
The notches in the parapet of the two-story brick sections are notched for the balcony rail to kind of punch through. Do you really need to do that? It might simplify everything if,
That was your comment last time, and I
okay.
disagree with you.
okay, all right.
I still
Okay.
disagree with you.
Well, there's a lot going on here. There's, there's kind of several buildings kind of joined together and all that. So all my comments are to kind of comment all down, like just kind of,
What do you disagree with, Robin?
At the balconies on the top of the podium, the brick breaks away, and there's a railing there.
Yeah, and you had it
He's
straight
saying-
across last time.
Well, no, I didn't, but he wanted me to have it straight across last time.
Ah, yeah, okay.
And
I don't
I
mind-
like that it relates to the windows
You
below.
like the crenellation.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I see why you did it.
Yeah.
Again, if it needed the texture and the detailing, it makes sense, but I don't think this building needs that level of thing. And when I walk by that building on the Lexington Station, and I'm looking through transparent rails, and including the Patton apartment building on Klingman, the translucent wire rail, whatever, you're looking right into people's units, and you see the TV, and so I'm all in favor in urban setting for opaque balcony rails, so you can kind of hide behind it a little bit. So, and plus, I can't help myself looking up inside people's apartments. So, anyways, let's see what else.
Probably shouldn't admit that in an open meeting, but keep going. I'm
I
just
don't know what
picking on
happened.
you.
Well, can I qualify that? I'm not peeping.
Architecturally
I'm just
speaking,
whoa, what does that unit look like inside? The pedestrian path through the bridge opening there, I think we talked about that a little bit last time. That gesture allows you to consider this being two buildings instead of one. And before there were some questions about, essentially it's a driveway. It's less of a driveway now because you've kind of clarified, like, this is where the people walk, which is good, but it's still kind of a driveway. Mostly because as you are drawing, as you're trying to convey that this is a pedestrian passage, why? Like, where is the pedestrian going? And they're not really being drawn to anything. They're being drawn to a parking lot.
Right.
And I'll have this comment for the landscape architecture team, but like I had hoped to see as you look through that opening and you see the hillside through the building, that there was something happening there.
Right.
Just to kind of, like, you're framing an aperture, creating a view through the building. What are you drawing that view towards? A retaining wall.
It's got to be a retaining wall, just by the site's definition, but eventually, when we get to signage, maybe we can do something fun with signage. There's not really much room for three-dimensional. I looked at it, and we even got rid of some more parking back there, so the retaining wall is coming even closer.
How tall is that retaining wall?
Tall.
So as you look through the opening, you're seeing a
We
12-foot
need-
tall
we need-
retaining wall?
Yeah, we need brush can to do just like a
Yeah.
Looney Tunes kind of vista, that you can. No, you're good.
Well, that was one comment is like, I think that softens the building by like creating some porosity. But if it's porosity leading you to a blank sterile wall, then it's kind of a tease in a way, like, hey, come on through here, but like, where are you going? And the paving, it looks like there's a hatch pattern on the ground level plan implying that maybe you're doing modular paving for that driveway. You guys,
You're getting into landscape. Let's
Okay,
stay on,
well, I'm talking about just, we're pretending it's a
We're
pedestrian.
continuing the sidewalk through.
That was
Yeah,
another great
We're continuing the
improvement.
sidewalk through.
Yeah. So, and for you guys, as you're walking, the sidewalk continues and the cars drive across sidewalk instead of the other way around, instead of you walking across a driveway. So I thought that was good. All right, one more comment, and I understand why you did it. The top floor on the corners, you kind of have a corrugated tower. You have corner balconies, and then you have a corrugated tower that comes up to the top floor and then stops, and then you have a partial deck. And I understand you gave that bedroom a deck, but it kind of fusses it up a little bit. And just personally, I would have rather seen that tower keep going, and just the complications of putting a
It's a
deck.
3-bedroom unit below it and a 2-bedroom above it.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I mean, you guys deal with putting a flat roof, waterproof thing
Yeah.
over the top of a bedroom, and I get you're up for the challenge, but I liked how clean that corner was, but then when it gets to the top, the porch kind of gets a little bit more complicated, so not a big thing.
Okay.
I think I'll go next. So I appreciate pretty much most of the moves you've made. I like Michael's suggestion on the mullions, especially on the middle piece. I'm not as sold on the brick piece. I think you could do a pair there with a brick column, but maybe you either push them together or you pull them apart, possibly. Look at that a little bit. Again, appreciate the attention to the rhythms of the retail. I think the clean horizontal lines, moving your big element over, grouping your rooftop pavilion behind that. Those are all really good moves. I do think you've cleaned up the balconies for the most part, at least. So in that view, the two pieces that are the one he was just talking about, it looked like one, but in the renderings they were separated. So you see there, they're separated, and in the other model, they look the upper
Oh, the roof.
the roof
Yes.
on that upper balcony is separated, and in at least one of the other models, it was all one.
Right.
I kind of like it all one.
It's supposed to be all one. I didn't
Okay,
catch
because,
that it was
yeah,
separated.
I don't like this.
It's not supposed to be separated.
It's very fussy, and I thought it made more sense to be
That'll
to
help
be
Mike
continuous right there.
It's supposed to be all one. Sorry about that.
It'll be a little less fussy. I think I'm okay with the lentils, but they're jumping around in size a good bit, and some of that's just throwing me off. I don't mind, especially in this in that 3D view. I like that where you did crenolate, whatever you want to call it, the balconies in the brick. You actually pull the balconies out a little bit, and I think that's a pretty good move. So I wanted to talk about, I don't see it in this rendering, where he was going, and I want to talk about architecturally with that centerpiece. So I do like what you did with the centerpiece. You've understated it, you've pushed it back, you changed the color, you're downplaying the window, and then we get to that little roof, and there's a curve in it, and it's throwing me off a little bit. So that one little roof piece over that vehicular pedestrian pass-through makes it look, it's like somebody else in the project did it, like it doesn't have anything to say with the other stuff that you're doing. My quick suggestion would be you only do a little piece over the pedestrian side and not necessarily the vehicular side. But I think that needs some. Right now, I don't know. In other words, I think it's going to look odd when you render it and you've got the paver, the vehicular paver, and then the sidewalk within. You know what I'm saying? So what's going on the ground plane is not reflected in the roof, and I'd like to see a hint of that at least. I think you picked up most of our other stuff. You simplified, you landed some of the elements that weren't landing, at least in my view, before.
Going back, I understand articulating the pedestrian path from the vehicular path, but if you can just soften it up, so it's kind of like an alleyway, like there's not pedestrian, there's not cars.
Just take the roof off. For me, it's like that curved element makes it really, really like, whoa, what's there? And it's like, but if there's nothing there, then I want it understated.
Okay.
I think the understated is the right move. And if you're gonna state something, it should be stating the pedestrian, not necessarily the vehicular. Because one of the things I like about what you're doing here is that this feels like a very human-scaled project. Like all of the details tell me how big people are as they're standing on everything. And that one does not.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So, guys, any others? Eddie, we're not letting you talk, but you can speak up if you've got any comments.
I wanted to ask about the address sign. Does it need to be that big? And I don't understand.
I don't know what that sign's gonna look like. That's just to show
Okay.
where the sign can be, and it can be that big.
It can be that big.
Yes, yeah, but we don't know what it's gonna say or look like.
Okay, because I think it's hideous the way it is. It's like a really whatever font, like in McDonald land colors stuck to the side of a corrugated metal building. So I would hope that the street signage or the address sign would either not be so prominent or be more attractive.
Okay, it will be. That was just me using.
Okay,
Arial.
I'm just going by what I see. And I just want to say that this is my neighborhood. I walk past this plot of land all the time. I'm a pedestrian. I don't even drive a car. And so thank you for wanting to do something with this horrible space that's been an eyesore for the 15 years I've lived in this neighborhood. And I like elements of the building, but I do feel like it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of like every material that is on the list of materials has been used. And I do have, so to me, it's a little bit like a bunch of buildings pushed together. Or like maybe the brick buildings were there and the rest were built to attach them. And also, I'm real concerned about heat mitigation along that corridor because it's brutal. Like, there's no trees on the other side of the street to protect you. From 12 noon until the sun dips behind West Asheville, that is brutal, man. So I see you have some trees, but I also feel like those trees are, even in the rendition, the shade is like so minimal. And the sunshine is just so brutal, even in your architectural drawings. And so I don't know that those are the right trees. I looked up the ones that were proposed. I think a fringe tree and a red bud. Those are not on anybody's list of shade trees. And I think shade is the reason for the trees. I don't think that, I mean, trees are beautiful. I love them. They're my favorite. But I think that for a pedestrian, ornamental trees are kind of like, they're a little bit of like you weren't thinking about the pedestrians, you were thinking about meeting city requirements for trees. So I hope that the trees that you choose will be different than the ones that were listed.
They are, I think they have to choose, when they have overhead power lines, they have to choose from a specific small species list.
I get it.
But maybe there's a,
Power lines?
There are.
yeah,
Yep.
but maybe there's another,
Can be topped, and shade trees do not need to be super tall trees. We have
Understood.
native cherry trees that are very shady, have small leaves, don't produce fruit, so they don't drop fruit everywhere. And they're easy to trim and keep nice and below the power lines. So my main concern is always like, am I getting skin cancer walking from point A to point B? Because I feel like that's part of the city's responsibility is to protect the citizens from the harmful rays of the sun. And so there's the trees, and then there's all the corrugated metal, which I just wonder how much heat is that going to radiate all day, every day, all summer. And I understand completely that corrugated metal is in the approved materials and such. It just is a concern of mine. Heat. It ain't going to get any cooler.
Right.
It's going to get hotter every year. Yeah. So I would hope that this is a real pleasant walk by, because right now it's not, and this is awesome, and I'm real happy that this is going to happen, but
just as a pedestrian, I want those trees. Yeah, that's my comment.
Well, going back to the signage, I think there was a comment submitted. I don't know if we read that, but it basically talked about signage that did you see that comment?
Yeah, I told Jeremy
76
that
It's
it's to reuse the existing signage on the site somewhere on the building.
Yeah.
It's part of the public comment.
Yeah.
It's part of the record.
Yeah.
So we're, and I totally forgot to do public comment last time. Okay, when we get to public comment, I'll just note that that's in the record.
Yeah, so that might fit into the conversation about signage, like reference that too.
That could go in that hole.
Time out. Sam, yes, sir.
No, and I did just, forgive my wild gesticulation here, but I do want to be clear about these regulations for RAD, that for a shopfront sort of sign that you're talking about, this is called a crown sign. It is 8 feet max and cannot exceed 250 square feet. So there are limitations here. It can't be as big as you want it. There are guide rails on there, and if you have any other questions on this type of signage, I would be happy to go back up there and answer that. But
Eddie, Joe, you have any specific architectural?
Not architectural.
Okay. Eddie, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you so much. Who's up for site?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Jason Gillen with Site Design Studio. We're the team landscape architect. Let's see.
Can you address Stu's tree question?
Yes,
Thank you.
I'll address that and then I'll get into I use a mouse. No touch screen. Uh-oh.
That's not ominous.
Okay. Yeah, with overhead utilities, we're required to provide one ornamental tree per 30 linear feet of street frontage, and that's what our plan reflects. If the overhead utilities were to be removed in negotiations with the utility company and, transportation and street departments change, that requirement goes to a large deciduous tree every 40 linear feet. So the intent of the streetscape will remain the same, but the plant selections and the spacing of those trees can change. So depending on that, but currently there are no plans to bury the overhead utility line, so we're working with what we have to respond to that. Okay. Big picture items, and I'll do my best to address the comments we heard at the informal. From a site plan perspective, we did eliminate the double-loaded parking in the rear of the building. There was about 50% of that parking had double-loaded. We eliminated that, pulled the wall closer to the street. We got some geotech, further geotech investigations and recommendations on the retaining walls and the grading of that hillside, which informed us to eliminate that parking, reduce the wall heights, reduce cost, which was all a positive thing, and drove us to the site plan that you see today. So with that being said, from that perspective, that was big. We did hear the change of materials, driveway, pedestrian through the corridor, which we've been discussing. In terms of streetscape, we eliminated the 6-foot turf strip, if you will. We do have on-street parking. Those type of strips and landscape areas get trashed by pedestrians with that on-street parking application. It's more of an urban application. So what we've chosen to do is have the on-street parking. Then we have the 6-foot strip, which would be a paver, which could house benches, trash receptacles, and street lights, should that be a need if the building lighting doesn't capture the pedestrian and vehicular requirements for lighting as part of this project. And then we have the 10-foot or the 8-foot minimum sidewalk corridor, and then we get into the building facade zone. So we did hear those comments at the informal. We did our best to address that. We cleaned up some TCP requirements. Oh, yes, and so here's that streetscape, and we did try to enhance, like I said, at-ground plantings and planters don't do well in urban environments. But we did try to highlight that entry and separate the pedestrian travel, vehicular travel, and soften that entry with some of that streetscape revision.
What are those circles between the trees? What do those represent?
That's either trash and recycling receptacles.
And the rectangles?
Those are tree grates. Oh, the rectangles? Yeah, those are benches, yes. Yeah. And so, like I said, if we like to put the trees where the striping is for the parking, so car doors don't hit them, you know. If the overhead utilities go underground, we would change the spacing of the trees, the quantity of the trees, and just adjust. So the intent of what we're trying to accomplish from a streetscape pedestrian perspective would be the same. It would just shift.
Are the benches required?
They're not necessarily required, but as part of the streetscape intent, we're encouraged to provide site furnishings and signage and receptacles and the pedestrian scale elements, which we did not provide at all in the first pass. We just had the requirement of the 6-foot, detached condition with the pedestrian sidewalks. But in this heavy of a pedestrian environment, we can see what's going on with the new development down there. I encourage it. It's a developer, City of Asheville negotiation, like how many trash receptacles do we want to pick up on a weekly basis, and do we need that many? And so we'll get into those conversations, but this is the intent.
Well, let me throw on my support for benches and trash bins, recycling bins. It's, again, something we heard over and over from community members and visitors in terms of what is needed and what's lacking. On the lighting, and I'm going to harp on this one because a lot of people really want it. And maybe this is a better question for Jeremy, I don't know, but what is the intention of those negotiations as it relates to streetscape lighting? I mean, is there a desire or intention as you go through the negotiations?
I mean, there's requirements from an architectural perspective to provide that exterior pedestrian requirement. Then we get into City of Asheville Street Department and Duke Energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are. This is, if I'm not mistaken, a DOT street. It's not a City of Asheville street. Is that true?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I would have to take a look.
Yeah, I believe it's NCDOT, so it's not a City of Asheville maintained street. So now we have another entity that it's their right of way. And then we get into this third-party agreement from a lighting perspective, and we get into it for water, and we get into it for sewer. So I put it in the bucket of utilities and infrastructure, and that's a whole level of discussion and negotiation. But if all parties find it to be deemed necessary, then we respond to that and get the right people involved to prepare the plans for that.
Okay.
And if I may interject, it is a city-owned and maintained road right-of-way, but that is, you know, I had alluded to this earlier in my presentation. There's an order of operations here where there's DRC and then it goes to final TRC, but we can absolutely capture those comments, and you are free to make a condition that that be explored too.
Okay.
At our last meeting, one of the questions we had was if you had discussed getting a grading easement or grading permission with the landowner to the north, so that you didn't quite have that retaining wall digging into the side right there. So that little
Those
spittle line.
conversations have not happened yet.
Okay,
But if Jeremy's open to that, I'm open to that
okay.
exploration.
I mean, they may want to keep it, you know how that goes, but, okay.
There is, I wouldn't call it significant, but there is consistent drainage coming off the mountain that feeds public infrastructure right at the property line. And that is something that we would have to investigate to even consider doing that additional grading and drainage work.
Yeah, I see the swell. I see the swell. It goes to that curb inlet
It's
on
there,
the
and I've
road.
been on site several times with no rain, and
It's
it's
still
pretty
running.
consistent.
It's
yeah.
running, okay. Well, maybe leave it alone.
Can we talk, let me pull up the landscape plan. It seems like there's a lot of activity at the very top of the hill, at least in terms of your graphic technique, looking at your landscape plan. Why so much attention way up the hill there?
So that is a required type A buffer because we are against a residential zoning district. We also will be grading the hillside to the extent that we cannot meet our 10% requirement TCP. So everything in red is our TCP replacement requirement. So everything at the top of the hill and in red is associated with the type A buffer and TCP. That is why there is so much attention up on the top of the hill.
Yeah, I looked, the city of Asheville owns that property there, and,
That is correct.
you know, maybe one day they'll expand, you know, housing there, in which case they might want to walk down the hill and get towards the river or something, and I don't know that you can accommodate that future, but it would be nice if there was more kind of flow from residents uphill down to Depot Street.
It's like a 70-foot, isn't it? That's a significant.
If we didn't have to go through a variance process, I would love nothing more than that to go away, yeah. I think,
Go away, that buffer?
I think it's unnecessary. There's still based on city-owned parcel, there's still a significant amount of heavily wooded vegetation between the development uphill of that and this, I think the buffer is gonna be kind of a non-impact, honestly, but.
Or just let it sprawl down the hill a little bit, like why does it have to all fit in that little buffer zone? I would think folks at the city would realize probably nothing's gonna happen between the retaining wall and that buffer planting, and why not spread it out a little bit?
We will talk to staff about that.
Can we talk about that retaining wall, which we're hearing is about 12 foot tall?
Sure.
And what's the material going to be on that?
To my knowledge, I am undetermined on what that is.
Segmental block of some kind, is that what you're planning to do? Lay it back and build it back in, or is it Solnell? What are you?
The updated engineering is intended to accommodate a stackable precast block.
Okay.
That's, and this is all subject to confirmation of feasibility.
And Sam, that's not, they don't have to do landscaping or anything in front of that because it's not technically visible from the street, is that?
Well, it depends. There are a number of regulations that govern what happens with retaining walls. You are generally correct that there are ways in which foreground landscaping can, I don't want to say you can forego them, but you can get around those if you are outside of 35 feet from the public roadway. But there are still other height requirements. So it's going to depend on these heights that come from the applicant team when they finalize their engineering. But it is likely that since they are still greater than 10 feet, they will have to do something that is a natural or artificial stone, brick, form lighter, or some art pattern. What we do see in a segmented block, there is some sort of river rock where it is a repeatable rock pattern is the most common, but it cannot be just a CMU or anything like that.
Right. But I will say with this, with the recommendations we got from Geotech and us eliminating the double-loaded parking, the wall height is half of what it was. We've had a recommendation from people in the audience that, you know, maybe through the hole that we see in this wall, we do promote some signage, directional signage for some of the tenants and uses. That's attractive, maybe a green wall. There's some opportunities there to soften that, you know, in that 25, 30-foot width location through that hole. But we are, I don't know, 50, 20, 90 feet from the road.
Yeah.
So a 15-foot wall 90 feet away is not going to be, it's not a big visual impact.
Well, you know, just for folks that park there, it's going to be kind of a harsh little hole there.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just, you know, again, you're walking by and you see through the hole and you're beginning to read this 15-foot high relentless wall. And if there's anything you can do, maybe you can indent into the hillside, just lining up with the bridge. Like take that curve, if the curve's still there, and just indent and maybe put some landscaping, like just make a little bit of room for some landscaping there or something, so that you're like acknowledging that there is a sight line, that is a space that people are in, and there was some attention to softening it up a little bit. Yeah.
This has been a painful process to find the right solution. I would say we would be very hesitant to move horizontally at all anymore because of the vertical impacts, but we will find a solution.
Well, that was just like 3 feet, enough to stick some things in the ground. So is there any way for the residents to like get up onto that hillside? Like,
No. This is a base of Cox Avenue situation. You know that development with you drive behind and the walls back there. It's.
What is that, like a 3-in-1?
What's that?
The hillside itself? 2-to-1. Yeah, you're not walking on that.
It's an engineered slope.
well, I mean, if you did a path that kind of crossed the slope, it's just, I don't know, seems like there's an opportunity for people to kind of find themselves on that hillside.
And the reality is, no one will see this slope because the building will block it. Even through the hole, you'll see the wall and maybe the base of the slope, which we've tried to highlight the majority of the required parking lot landscaping, if you will, towards the base of the hill at the top of the wall.
So the driveway paving, it's articulated differently from the pedestrian paving. What's the plan there?
Yeah, to bring some element of the building brick material to the ground level, and also the brick pattern I was describing in the streetscape between the primary
same
walking
stuff.
surface, yeah.
Yeah, that would help, for sure.
Any other questions on site? Eddie?
I'm going to have some questions about parking. Is that, Jeremy, are you getting up to address anything Because they might be better questions for you, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Jason. Who's next? So what are we talking about? Parking?
I have some questions about parking.
All right. If you don't mind stating your name, coming forward.
Jeremy Cohen, hi.
Hi. Go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy, how you doing? You know I'm excited about this project. You've got the unique distinction of developing one of the more significant projects since the parking requirements were changed. And what we heard over and over in our survey responses is parking is already a pain point, especially when the RAD has, larger events. So, reading through, it looks like there are 72 units. And we've got mostly one bedroom with, I think, 8 2 to 3 bedroom units. So it looks like, at a minimum, you got 72 adults. At a maximum, you got about 158 adults. And you've got 14 parking spots behind the building. And then you've got, you're adding 5 public parking spaces at the street level, which is great. And then you've got 6 long-term bike parking spaces as required. So I've got a couple questions related to that. And then you've got 38 remote vehicle parking spots over in the Norfolk Southern property. Does that all sound right?
All of that is accurate.
Okay, cool. One question I have is the 6 bike parking spaces in that room, what kind of capacity do you have to add additional long-term bike parking spaces in that room?
That we actually intend on having a minimum of 40 indoor spaces for tenant bicycles as an amenity.
Okay. That's awesome.
We love multimodal.
Huh?
We love
I know you do.
any other way of getting around town.
I've seen
than a
you
car, yeah.
biking on yourself, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think your tenants, until, the city and other developers help to solve the parking problem in the River Arts District, people are gonna feel a lot of pain, including your tenants. So that might drive them to use bikes more often. And knowing that you've got the capacity to accommodate your tenants, or a lot of them, that's very helpful. The remote parking across the street, do you have an agreement with Norfolk Southern?
That we do have an agreement in place but because the remote parking is a lease, that's the simplest way of approaching it was separately from this development, which is on the east side of Depot Street, and then that parking lease is on the west side of Depot Street.
Yeah. To what extent will that be developed? Is that like impermeable surface? I mean, I think I know the answer to that based on what the railroad has agreed to in other areas of the River Arts District, but what do you intend to develop in that parking area?
that right now, I don't know, we will need safe, lighted parking with easy tenant access. I don't at this moment have specifics, though.
Okay.
So it's not presented as, I mean, you're more than welcome to ask the question. I would assume, Sam, so normally when they bring something and they have a remote parking agreement, we don't necessarily have design purview over that remote parking unless it's part of our submission, if that makes sense. I mean, you're more than, I'm not telling you can answer the question, I'm just making clear kind of like, I don't know that that's part of our lines.
No, it really isn't. It is one of those things where if parking were a concern as it relates to the building, certainly, how you get to parking, is that a pedestrian connection, is it not, is relevant and germane. It has been made complicated by our decision to remove parking minimums in certain zoning districts too. This is one of them, so technically no parking is required.
So we had a similar project, where was that one at, Michael, where they had parking across the street, and it was part of the submission, and we talked a lot about like the pedestrian crossing getting there, and then how they were paving it, what the trees were and everything around that, because it was kind of interrupting your ability to get down to the French Broad. It's kind of like on the edges of what we can, ask about.
To clarify my questions, it's more context for, and I should have asked them in reverse order, but, the bike parking room within the building, understanding the capacity of that as it relates to the available parking that the building is going to have available to it. My questions are always going to be in relation to the RAD community and that ecosystem. So, knowing that there are potentially 40 spots in that room, great, awesome. I think you're still a bit underserved in terms of vehicular and bike parking, but people got to figure that out,
This parking is a challenge for all of us.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
And I agree that more parking would be awesome. And that's part of the trade-off with these infill locations.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm with you. I stay up at night thinking
Yeah.
about this.
And I know it's a complicated thing, and, I also support the reduction of parking spaces in relation to these projects and, development requirements. But since there's going to be this period of transition between we've removed that requirement and we don't have enough capacity for everybody in the River Arts District, the pain is going to be felt and everybody's going to be jumping up and down for more parking capacity in the River Arts District. So I guess some of my questions are just to get everybody thinking about that so that we can move through that pain period more quickly.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you so much. At this time, I'll open the floor for public comment and actually do a little bit of my job today. You can't do this as public comment either, sorry. Is there any public comment? All right, I will close at public comment at 2:25. All right, do we need to have any further discussion among the commissioners?
Just referencing a written submitted comment about incorporating signage from the existing building.
Or at least some kind of nod to the Parker Oil.
Local or whatever, the gas company.
The Evelyn, I think, but yeah.
Which I thought was a good comment.
Do those signs still exist? They haven't been torn down? They don't still exist.
I don't know.
That site's been pretty scraped clean at this point. The tanks aren't there
Yeah, I
anymore.
was there a couple weeks ago taking pictures, and I didn't see the signs.
I don't think the signs are still there.
I don't think they're there.
tanks are long gone, yeah. Say that again? Yeah.
I don't have a problem requesting that they, that the signage just be appropriate to the site and the history of the site. So the conditions I currently kind of have noted is Michael's note for considering grouping or providing a mullion detail for those windows to make the window groupings in that center element read like a single element. Potentially looking at something similar at the groupings within the big brick podium element. I have addressing the roof and the materiality of that pedestrian passage, as well as what you see on the retaining wall through that pedestrian passage. I have Stu's recommendation to carefully review the tree species of the street trees, and then to do appropriate signage that references the history of that site. Those are kind of my conditions that I've heard so far. If I missed any?
Maybe a comment on the street lighting, not necessarily.
Oh, thank you. No, you're right. That applicant review street lighting and building lighting as appropriate to provide appropriate safety and visibility for pedestrians.
Yeah, and I would say, and I see this further down, some buildings kind of turn off their sign lighting, their exterior lighting, so it kind of removes the safety feature at a certain point in time. So I would say if there is lighting and it's provided by the building, then it would have to stay on throughout the night.
Okay.
Not a condition, but I just want to thank the applicant for engaging local design team. And as compared to the previous reviewed project, you all incorporated our comments, you reacted to them, they were embedded in the resubmittal, and I think that's what we hope for, and I appreciate you doing that. And I'm very supportive to see more activity on Depot Street, so I'm glad to see you doing that.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion unless y'all, I would move to recommend approval of the mixed-use project located at 290 Depot Street as presented based on the site plans, elevations, and the materials submitted and the discussions heard during this review. I find that the project meets the intent of the River District Design Guidelines, subject to the following conditions. One, that the applicant consider the window mullion detail as discussed in the meeting for the center element, that the applicant consider the window groupings within the center of the brick podium, that the applicant review the roof detail and materiality of the pedestrian passage, including potential surface treatments of the retaining wall as viewed by the pedestrian through that vehicular and pedestrian passage, that the applicant review the tree species to maximize shade as much as practicable within city guidelines, that the applicant review the signed package to make an appropriate signage that is sensitive to the history of the parcel, and that the applicant, as much as practicable, provide street lighting and building lighting for pedestrian safety and visibility. So moved. Is there a second?
A second.
All right. I need to go through, if I can find such a thing. Bear with me. I lost my place. I need to do a voice vote, so I'll just go through. Eddie?
Approved.
Michael?
Aye, approved.
Stu?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
I'm an aye. That motion carries. That concludes our formal business. I would move to adjourn. All in favor? Say aye.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Thank you.